When I first started to discern a vocation, it was a vocation to the priesthood. So I started talking to the diocese where I was living and went to a couple come and sees with them. And I decided along that time of discernment that really the diocesan life was not for me. So I felt more called to live a life of community, of fraternity. So my spiritual director at the time said to me, you know, you should talk to a religious community. And at that point, I didn't really have anybody in mind. And I said, well, I always was attracted to St. Francis. That always appealed to me, that from a distance, that lifestyle. He said, well, you should talk to the Franciscans. And at that time, I didn't really know any friars, but as Providence would have it, within the next week or so, I was attending a daily mass and outside of my own parish. And the priest came out for the celebration of the mass, and he had a big brown hood sticking out of his vestments in the back. And I said, I think that's a Franciscan. So after Mass, I went and spoke to him, and ended up being Father Jude Duffy, who was a Capuchin friar. And he said, I asked him if I could come and see him and talk to him about his life, the lifestyle of the friars. And he said, sure, come and see.
I met the Capuchins on a vocation weekend and didn't know them at all. Just heard about them, but not much else. But when I made the vocation weekend and I met the brothers, something kind of clicked on that weekend. And I kind of knew, if I'm going anywhere, it's going to be here.
During the summer of the year 2000, I had the opportunity to go to Rome for World Youth Day. And it was there when Pope John Paul II said he challenged us young people to dare to become the saints of the new millennium. It was at that point when I really began to discern in a more serious way the call to the priesthood. And I remember during that trip, we had the opportunity to go to Assisi. And when I went to Assisi, especially when I went to and pray at the tomb of St. Francis, I felt this deep connection with him. And returning to the United States, I read a biography on him, The Little Flowers of St. Francis, and I truly fell in love with his life. And it was from that moment that I began to discern a call to the Franciscan life. And eventually I was introduced to the Capuchin. And the more I got to learn about the Capuchins, I realized that the Lord was truly calling me to be a Capuchin.
So when I visited the Capuchins, what I saw the Capuchins, the fraternity, the brotherhood, how the guardian was serving the brothers and their prayer life, their contemplation, and also the love for the poor. It brought me back to the little flowers of St. Francis. And I says, Lord, if it's your will, make me like them.
I was probably 12 years old when I told my mom I wanted to be a priest. And but you know, as time goes on, you become a teenager and you get older, and you don't want to tell your friends, or you don't want to talk about it. But it was always in the back of my mind, that I wanted to be a priest. And I never thought of it again, until probably I was in college, that's where I met the Capuchins. And there's where again, I started thinking about, the priesthood. But when I thought about the Capuchins, then I was really interested, because when I remember one of the friars there gave me a brochure, and I saw what it was about, living in community, prayer, ministry, all that attracted me. And so the more I thought about it, and I thought, wow, this sounds great. The idea of being a priest still, but living in community.
And what I love about the life, Capuchin life, is that being men of prayer, men of contemplation, and also being men of the people. I think it was Pope Paul VI, and many popes have called the Capuchin the people's friar. So that is the beauty for me, the beauty of our life, that we spend a lot of time before the Lord, praying, but then we are willing to go out to bring the joy of the gospel to others, and to encounter people in their journey. So for me, that is what draws me to the Capuchin. This love for Jesus, this love for prayer, for contemplation, but at the same time, this great joy that we experience when we go out and meet the people. For me, especially working with the poor, with immigrants, is something that gives me great joy. Every day now that I had the opportunity of going into the street of Atlanta, meeting the homeless, it gives me this great joy to know that I am with them, that I am accompanying them, and that it is not so much what I bring to them, but it's much more what they give to me, because many times they give me Christ as I encounter them.
The main thing which draws me to Capuchin life is the simplicity of brothers and the brotherhood itself. And the last one is the happiness of brothers that made me to stay in the Capuchin Franciscan life, working for the homeless people and working for the good of the people. That's what making me to stay focused in Capuchin life, and I always cherish to be a brother, to live a simple life, to have a happy life and joyous life as a Franciscan.
When I began to learn more about the Capuchins, began to learn more about how important contemplative prayer is, how important prayer is, the contemplative life of the friars, which I never knew. Because the first thing I saw, what attracted me was, okay, yes, the prayer, but the ministry, ministry to the poor, and that was like my attraction. But the more, I learned about the Capuchin life, when I realized how much the Capuchins pray and how important prayer is, to the Capuchins, that was more like of inspiration.
It drew me to the Capuchins, where the actual example of the lives of these friars that I met, experiencing that life when I visited them. But then also the combination of fraternity, the call to a contemplative prayer life, as well as a communal prayer life, and then that simple outreach, that ministry to the poor. I found that was the best of both worlds for me. Things that drew me to the friars when I met them for the first time, that I felt comfortable in their presence, I felt encouraged in their presence, I saw their holiness in the midst of their humanness, and it just kind of inspired me, to say, yeah, I want what they have. And hopefully if the Capuchin charism is being lived well, other people in the world today, when they encounter us, will have that same feeling.